What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Holy from Holy Lives. We're back with another video, man. As you can see in the title, what it was like being black in every era. I'm black as fuck, so I need to know. I know about slavery, but I don't know like anything else besides slavery and now. And to be honest, I think slavery was worse than now, for sure. I don't got too much explaining. Let's get into the fucking video, nigga. Into the fucking video.
Your wrists are tied with rope, and your back is open from the lashings. In front of you, a man with a white wig raises the bid. You are lot number 12.
Wild as fuck.
This is how the life of millions of people taken from Africa began. But before all that, Africa was a prosperous place, and the color black was a symbol of status. You were in the Mali Empire in the 14th century. There lived Mansa Musa, the wealthiest man in history. The black people were great traders and warriors and had prestigious libraries.
Mansa Musa probably was like I'd be a Mansa Musa type nigga. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in that era, I'll probably be that nigga, if I was born back then. But you know what I'm saying? Let's keep going.
That attracted scholars from other cultures. And most importantly, there is no system that assigns you inferiority based on your skin color. But that vision is about to be shattered. On the coasts of the Gulf of Guinea, ships with unfamiliar flags appear. First, they bring mirrors, fabrics, and trinkets. Then weapons. And behind the weapons, a new value system, one in which your body begins to have a price. And that price is not a symbol of wealth, but of capture. No one knows it yet, but you are on the verge of a global transformation where the most diverse and autonomous continent in the world will be reduced to a caricature of poverty, chaos, and darkness. Let's go back to the beginning. You've just been sold to your new owner, but you understand nothing. You didn't break any laws or do anything wrong. Your only sin was being born with the wrong color. At the wrong moment, they tie you up and brand you.
This shit reminds me of like Tokyo Ghoul, bro. You just born into the wrong system. It just so happens you're on the bad side. It just so happens I'm on the bad side. I'm on the side eating humans. You know what I mean? It's not fair, but it's life. I'm so glad things have changed. Racism still is here today. I didn't think it was until...
And before you can understand anything, you are on a ship heading to a continent you didn't even know. The air smells of rotting, and you have been weeks without setting foot on land. Some around you jump into the sea to escape. Others simply die chained, and you survive. But the real nightmare has not yet begun. When the ship arrives, a white man examines you as if you were a horse. He checks your teeth, your muscles, and your age. Then he puts a number on your chest. That number is your new name. No one asks you what you know how to do. No one offers you a deal. From now on, your only function is to work until your body breaks or is replaced. The world has invented a category for you: black slave. And that label will be exported, normalized, and legalized for centuries. That was being black in the 17th century.
I always wonder, why didn't they see us and want to worship us? Why did they sit back and be like, let's kill these niggas. Let's make these niggas work for us. Why wasn't it like, they're taller than us, they're bigger than us, oh, let's celebrate them? I don't get it, man.
In the Caribbean, in Brazil, and in the southern United States,
we gotta figure that out.
Your body was an asset in your life and investment. But in the midst of that horror, something begins to form.
No, I'm not gonna lie. I gotta find that out. No bullshit. Because I gotta figure that out. Who was the person to have the first slave, bro? Okay, so they obviously they don't fucking know, but let's say black. Let's say black. Let's go like black. Let's be specific. Black people began during the 15th century. All right, fuck it. They not gonna give us a name.
Small acts of resistance, coded songs, nightly escapes, and slaves who oppose even at the cost of their lives. Because even whenever
I was one of them niggas. I ain't gonna lie. I was a runaway. Keep it a buck with you. I know in my past life, I was one of them runaways, nigga. I ain't gonna lie to you. My nigga was what? Trust me.
Everything around you says you are
I can't follow
worthless.
the rules for nothing.
There's a spark that no one can extinguish. The will to be free.
I cannot be picking
And the
cotton,
end
nigga.
of slavery did not exactly
Especially
bring
in this
freedom.
type of heat.
What came next was
Hell
more
nah,
subtle,
twin.
more legal, and in some cases, just as cruel.
Cruelly fucked,
What
man.
many do
Cruelly
not
fucked.
know is that transatlantic slavery was not just a human tragedy. It was a globalized economic system. More than 12 million Africans were forcibly transported to America between the 16th and 19th centuries. It is estimated that at least 2 million died during the journey. They didn't even arrive alive at the destination. Portugal and Great Britain were responsible for almost 70% of all the slave
It
Get
just said
exclusive
Portuguese,
Mortal Kombat
nigga.
2 wallpapers
Yo.
for your PC with B.
trade.
This shit facts.
And Brazil received almost 40% of all the African slaves in the world, while the United States received only 4%. But there the descendants grew in number because slavery became reproductive. Yes, slaves were forced to have children, not to create a family, but to multiply the master's wealth. The daily life of a slave was worse than you could imagine.
So if you had that big young, he was big and tall and strong, you was fucking. Straight up. They was having you fuck all day.
Your day started before dawn and could last up to 16 hours. Sugarcane, cotton, tobacco. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you can't stop. A slave who broke down or fell ill too soon was a financial loss. One who held up was pushed to the limit. And if you ever thought
That's a fact. That's why they say, look, they treat the hardest workers like shit, bro. Like if you're like, it just depends. Like, say if you're like corporate, it really depends on where you work. You know what I'm saying? But if you're like warehouse where you really slaving, like warehouse, construction, all that shit, the way they appreciate you is by giving your ass more work and keep you underpaid. Especially us niggas. I used to work at this warehouse where, you know, a white, you know, not I'm not racist at all, but this I never knew racism was still in today. It never affected me until I started working at that warehouse at my old job. When I got there, you seen nothing but white people in the office and like one white person in the back where the warehouse working. When I started working in the warehouse, I noticed that the white guy barely did anything. Nobody would say anything to him. He would talk all day. He'll do this, he'll do that, right? And it so happens that this guy was in charge in a way. He wasn't, it was weird. It's long story short, we don't give a fuck. But yeah, he would do nothing. They wouldn't say shit to him. But when it came to us, it was like, it's the end of the world. Like, we the laziest, shittiest people in the world. They'll catch us talking for like 5 seconds and all we do is talk. They'll catch us like standing for like 5 seconds. All we do is just stand around. And you see this one white guy don't do shit the whole day and still get paid more than us. It was ridiculous. And then I'm like, okay, maybe that's just that. Like, you know what I mean? You can't just be like, okay, one white guy. Like, that's just that. They added another white guy back there because that white guy left. Same shit. Another white guy, same shit. But if you ask them, we worse than them, worse than him. It's just complete bullshit. We're expected to do so much more when they could do less. And then on top of that, you know, I actually had like a racism case with this place. So it's wild to see that it still exists till this day.
about escaping, the consequences were brutal. Mutilations, public punishments with steel whips, collars with spikes to prevent you from sleeping, and in extreme cases, you were executed as a warning to others. But the most wicked thing was not just the physical aspect, but the attempt to annihilate your memory with a method called cultural erasure technique. Your original name vanished, and you were given another one. Your language was punished, and your religion was banned. Families were systematically separated at auctions to prevent you from feeling part of a group. The less you knew about who you were, the easier it was to accept who they said you were. And yet, something remained. These systems were not always perfect, and sometimes cracks appeared. Encrypted chants, new hybrid cultures used to emerge to blend in without being noticed, and other kinds of signals that revealed the human instinct for survival. For example, Follow the Drinking Gourd was not just a children's song. It was a coded route to escape north, guided by the North Star. The slaves in Haiti mixed Catholic symbols with the African gods of voodoo. They did this to hide their beliefs from the masters without losing them. In Brazil, Candomblé did the same. In Cuba, Santeria. Each region adapted its tools, but the goal was the same: to keep alive a root they couldn't kill. Even the language was a field of resistance. Creoles, like Patois or Palenquero, were born as mixes between African languages, Spanish, English, or French. And then there was rebellion. Because yes, there was also rouballion. In Haiti, the slaves forcibly took their freedom. The 1791 revolution, led by figures like Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines, defeated the French and founded the first free country governed by black people. And in the United States, although many revolts were brutally crushed, like Nat Turner's in 1831, each one left a crack, one that showed that not even the most savage punishment could extinguish the idea of dignity. But then abolition came, and with it, another mask. There was no land to start anew, nor justice. Only a new form of control emerged, disguised as freedom. Just a few years after the abolition, the southern United States invented a new form of oppression: the Jim Crow laws, a set of rules that, without ever mentioning the word slave, made it very clear what you were: a black person who had to stay in their place. And what did it mean to be free in this new system? Imagine walking down the street and not being able to use the same bathroom, the same train car, or sit on the same park bench if a white person was already occupying it. If you were given a dirty look and responded, you could be lynched. Even economic success could be a reason for punishment. Black schools were underfunded, without books or desks in good condition. Hospitals didn't admit black patients if they were full of white ones. The most prestigious universities simply rejected your application. And all this was not an anomaly.
In Albion, no matter where you go or what you do, your mount will accompany you on your journey. Perhaps you'll pick the ox, a merchant's best.
It was the law. But during a brief period called Reconstruction...
Just think about it. Grandparents had to deal with that shit, bro. I never met my grandparents. You know, they died. You know, my grandma got murdered, and then my grandpa died when I got old enough. He just died, you know, and then, you know.
Between 1865 and 1877, there was a ray of hope. Constitutional amendments were passed promising equality. Some African Americans even reached Congress, like Hiram Revels, the first African American senator in 1870. But that window was short-lived. Groups like the Ku Klux Klan began to spread terror. And when the federal troops withdrew from the South, everything returned to normal, one where racism became state policy again. Since 1896, with the famous case Plessy versus Ferguson, the Supreme Court legalized the doctrine of separate but equal, which allowed schools, public spaces, and even cemeteries to be segregated by law. For more than 50 years, if an African American protested, organized, or simply stood out too much, they were seen as a threat. And then came the punishment. Between 1880 and 1950, more than 4,000 black people were lynched in the United States. Some were shown on photographic postcards. Yes.
1950, that's 20 years before my mother was born. 20 years. Just think about it, it's 20 years before my mother was born.
Like it was a fair. Others were burned alive in front of crowds. One of the most remembered cases was that of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old boy who was tortured and killed in 1955 for allegedly flirting with a white woman. Emmett Till's mother, Mamie Till, decided to display his body.
My boy played in that movie. His name's Allo Thompson. Shout out to him. He played in that movie, man.
An open casket.
Shout out to him.
That image was so powerful that it sparked a wave of national outrage. But that was an exception. The norm was silence. Meanwhile, in the shadows, and without anyone seeing it coming, in churches, barbershops, cafes, and basements, the black community organized peacefully and non-violently. They wanted to show society that they were just as capable. There were schools founded by former slaves, newspapers written by and for African Americans, and, little by little, a collective identity that did not ask for permission to exist. Music played a crucial role. Blues, jazz, and gospel were ways of telling an experience.
If it wasn't for entertainment, bruh, slavery would still be going till today, bruh. If they didn't realize we were some entertaining ass niggas, promise you that we would be picking cotton till this day, man. Like, what? Hell, they like, man, these niggas can sing and dance. Well, you might well fuck it, man. You might well let these niggas be free. I'm telling you.
That the system wanted to silence. Being black in this era meant living under constant threat, but it also meant creating beauty amidst the siege. And that set the stage for what would come next. A generation that was no longer willing to bow their heads and ready to fight for their rights. But in the meantime, in other parts of the world, the news of the abolition was just arriving. And Europe understood that if it could no longer exploit enslaved bodies, it would do so with the lands where they were born. In 1884, during the Berlin Conference, European countries divided Africa on a map, without consulting a single African person. France, the United Kingdom, Belgium, Germany, and other powers imposed their flags, languages, and systems over almost the entire continent. And they did so under a narrative of civilization that concealed a much more brutal reality. Schools taught European history, local languages were banned, and African names were erased from the records. In the Congo, under the personal control of King Leopold II of Belgium, millions died or were mutilated for not meeting rubber production quotas. In the French colonies, special laws were applied only to natives, including arrests without trial, torture, and forced labor. In the whole colonial system, being black meant being
You know what's crazy? That happens today. That happens today, bro. My old job, like a long time ago. Every time, like I said, the salesmen were all white. They're all white. There's not one black salesman in there. Every time they don't meet quota, they threaten to fire people. And the only people they're firing is people in the back. They're not firing the salesman. They're firing a warehouse worker. And you know what majority of warehouse workers are? What color they are? I'll let you explain.
marginalized, even in your own land.
I'll let you figure it out.
But despite the repression, forms of resistance emerged. Traditions were orally preserved, African beliefs mixed with imposed religions, and political movements began to
This game, you're not ready.
organize. After World War II, with Europe weakened, the struggles for independence became unstoppable. In 1957, Ghana became the first African country to gain independence. And in the following decades, more than 30 countries managed to break free from colonial rule. While Africa was finding its voice again, on the other side of the ocean, another black generation was getting ready. They were not fighting against colonizers, but against internal laws. However, the goal was the same: to exist with dignity. In the United States, legal segregation was still alive in every corner of the southern part of the country. And there, a generation was born determined to challenge everything. Martin Luther King led boycotts and marches, while Malcolm X raised his fist with a different kind of message. In the southern streets, young people risked their lives to sit at the same counter as a white person. In Oakland, the Black Panthers patrolled their own neighborhoods armed because they knew nobody else was going to protect them. And it wasn't just a local battle. Across the ocean, countries like Ghana, Algeria, and Nigeria were breaking away from European colonialism. Some gained their independence through elections, others with rifles. But they all knew the same thing: dignity is not negotiable. Music and ideas crossed borders. Jazz was playing in New York, in Lagos, Afrobeat. In black universities in America, Fanon was read. While in Africa, people talked about Pan-Africanism and continental unity. The struggles were different, but increasingly connected. And with that connection, Black identity began to transform. It was no longer just about surviving. It was about organizing, speaking, and creating. But the system knew it. Malcolm was killed, and King was too. And many African leaders met the same fate, because being Black was still seen as a threat. Even so, something was irreversible. For the first time in centuries, being Black also meant having a voice. They didn't know it, but in a marginalized neighborhood of the Bronx, a group of young Black people had just created a language that would dominate the planet, hip-hop. While the news spoke of drugs, poverty, and violence, they responded with beats, graffiti, and verses that told the truth no one wanted to hear. Racism was still there, but it was no longer just law. Now it came in the form of labels, stereotypes, and invisible chains. Music became storytelling, cinema a mirror, and fashion a code. In the 80s and 90s, Black artists went from being on the margins to setting global trends. Public Enemy denounced state surveillance. Tupac talked about systemic racism and police brutality. Spike Lee filmed neighborhoods that Hollywood had ignored for decades. Black culture stopped being a subculture and became an economic engine. And that scared many, because if before the system was imposed with laws, now it did so with surveillance, prison, and exclusion. In the United States, during the war on drugs, mass incarceration disproportionately affected Black men. Despite consuming drugs at similar rates, they were 4 times more likely to go to prison than white people. The laws were not racist, but their effects were. In South Africa, after decades of apartheid, Nelson Mandela was released from prison after 27 years and became president. And the country celebrated its freedom without erasing the systems of inequality that continued to operate economically, in land ownership, and in representation. Being Black in the 90s was a new kind of contradiction. Television showed you triumphs, but the system showed you limits. You could get a Grammy, but not a second chance if you were born in the wrong neighborhood. You could be a movie star and still be followed by a security guard in a store. Nowadays, you can see Black people on magazine covers, being awarded, leading companies, or even a country. But that doesn't mean racism has disappeared. It has just changed form. When Barack Obama was elected president in 2008, many saw him as a symbol of change. And yet, just a few years later, the killing of young Black people like Trayvon Martin or Michael Brown showed again that your skin color can still cost you your life, even if you have done nothing. This is how Black Lives Matter was born. First as a message, and then as a movement that spread across the world. Cameras now record what was previously ignored. But that doesn't mean there is justice. Today, racism is not always overt. Sometimes it lives in algorithms, in resumes that do not receive replies, in neighborhoods without investment, and in selective police checks. Being Black can still mean having to constantly prove your worth, that you are not a threat, and that you deserve to be where you are. And at the same time, there has never been so much visibility. Black culture drives fashion, music, cinema, and language. The influence is global. From Paris to New York, a new Black generation is telling their story in their own voice. It's not all struggle. There's also pride, creation, and community. But what is clear is that even today, being Black remains political.
Hey guys, that was a good quick video, man. This is wild to see what being Black was in every era. You know what I'm saying? I only know the recent, era that I'm in today, and it's still there. You know what I mean? Like, I used to be blind to it. You could tell like a little bit, like every Black person go through, like, you hold the door for somebody and they don't say thank you, preferably the other color, skin color, YT. But or they'll give you looks, or you know what I mean, like, I've been followed around the store plenty of times, like plenty of times, you know what I'm saying? And it was up until I got like 20 and I started fucking back, like, what the hell you following me for? Or why look at me like that? And then you don't really see it until you get into the workforce too as well. Like, I didn't see it because I had like petty jobs, like, you know what I mean? But when I got into a real job, I started seeing it, and I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. Like, it's wildly like, it's there. It is there. Racism is there, and it's with people you don't even think are like that, and it sucks because it's just culture. It's just culture, bro. It's just the difference between culture. I don't think it will ever change. It will never change. Like it will never change. If the roles was reversed and black people came to, to another land, we still would have enslaved white people. Let's just be real. It's just human nature. And you can't fault human nature. You just can hopefully assume that everybody's aware that it's happening and, try to make it better. But it just won't. And, at least not in my lifetime. You know what I mean? Just think about it. Like I just said, my grandfather was probably most likely were slaves. You know what I mean? And that's only two greats. And let's be real, my great grandmother probably was a slave too. And my grandmother had to deal with segregation. So my mother had to deal with it when she was younger. You know what I mean? Like my grandmother got murdered. She got kidnapped and murdered. You know what I mean? Like, so you just got to think, like, you know what I'm saying? This shit is it's crazy. And, I don't want to say it was racism, but, it was a white man. You know what I mean? Like, so, it's wild. It's not going to change in my lifetime, but I hope it does get better. And, let's all be one. It's too much money in this world to even be thinking about racism. Let's get this money. Let's prosper. Let's all win. I hope you guys win. I hope you guys make it in life and whatever you want to be. And let's prosper and make this world better. You know what I'm saying? It's your boy Holy. I'm about to be out of here.